Tonight, before the world goes quiet, before the final lights dim behind curtains and city windows, I thought we might drift together through an idea. Something ancient. Something that doesn't ask much of us, only that we pause, and maybe breathe a little more gently. This evening's reflection is about slowing down, but not in the way we often think about it. Not about stopping, not even about rest, really. It's about something older, softer, wiser. You see, there's a quiet way of moving through the world, a way the ancient Taoists once lived. Not by force, not by urgency, but by rhythm, by harmony, by watching clouds or listening to the shape of silence. And they believed, strangely enough, that when you slow down, you don't fall behind, you fall into place. That's what we'll drift through tonight. Not a lecture, not a lesson, just a series of images. Memories not quite yours, but familiar all the same. Stories and reflections from a quieter time when the world was still wild and people still watched the moon to decide when to begin again. But before we get too far, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? I always wonder about that, because somewhere, across a sea or a desert, someone else might be curling into bed at this very moment too. And I like imagining that, even just for these few minutes, we're sharing the same quiet. So wherever you are and whatever the time is, welcome. Let's begin. Just slowly, like a leaf falling onto water. There's a river I remember. It wasn't wide or fast, but it moved, always moved. Not with noise or drama, just with a steady certainty. The elders in that part of the world used to say the river never hurries, and yet it always gets where it's going. That thought stayed with me. Long after I left the place, long after I stopped remembering the faces, I still remember the way the river moved. It's one of the first lessons you find in Taoism. That water, gentle, shapeless, often overlooked, is the most powerful force in the world. Because it yields, because it doesn't resist, because it finds the low places and makes them full. Laozi, the old sage who gave the world the Tao Te Ching, spoke of water as a model for how to live, not as a metaphor, but as a real way of being. He called it the highest good, because water nourishes all things. But it never competes, it doesn't demand attention, and yet it can wear down the hardest stone. The Taoist way isn't about speed. It's not about optimizing every moment or squeezing every ounce of progress out of a day. It's about attuning yourself to the natural rhythm beneath everything. The rhythm we stopped noticing when clocks took over the sky. I think about that when I see people rushing to finish a task, rushing to respond, rushing to become. But the river doesn't rush, and it never stops moving. There's a story from the southern mountains of China, in a village nestled between soft hills and terraces of rice. Generations lived there without roads, without schedules, without anything to mark time except sunrise and planting season. And yet, they were never late. Children there would rise not to alarms, but to birdsong. They'd eat when hungry, work when the soil was ready, rest when the rain began. No one needed to rush, because nothing was separate. Time wasn't something to race against. It was something to move with. It's easy to forget that, when the world is always telling you you're falling behind, that every moment needs to be filled, that silence is a kind of failure. But it wasn't always that way, and it doesn't have to be now. Sometimes I wonder, what if we stopped measuring our days by output and started noticing how many quiet moments we allowed ourselves to pass through? What if moving slowly wasn't the opposite of ambition, but a return to balance? The Taoists never said life should be easy, only that it should be true. And truth, they believed, is found in the same way the river finds the ocean, by following what's already there, not forcing, not planning, just listening. In those writings, scrolls written with ink that took days to grind by hand, there is no praise for hurry, no admiration for conquering the world in record time. Instead, there are verses about clouds, about footsteps in snow, about a single crane gliding over a frozen lake. They saw beauty in what moved without urgency, and strength in what did not resist its nature. When you watch a river, you see that it doesn't cut a straight path. It curves, meanders, takes its time, and still, it carves through mountains. We don't need to resist the flow, not tonight, not here, not in this moment. Maybe it's okay that we're not where we thought we'd be by now. Maybe that's not failure. Maybe it's just the current showing us a different direction. Sometimes the fastest way to get there is to stop trying so hard to arrive and simply let yourself drift, just enough to see what the water has to say. There's a word in Taoism, one that slips quietly through conversations like mist through trees, a word that doesn't shout or announce itself, just appears like morning fog rising from a valley floor. Wu Wei. It's often translated as non-action, but that's a little misleading. It doesn't mean doing nothing, it means something softer, more mysterious, effortless action. Action in harmony with the flow, the kind of doing that doesn't feel like doing at all. There's a story, not famous but passed down in whispers from a mountain province, a story of a man named Wen. Wen lived alone in a small hut on the edge of a bamboo forest. He wasn't a monk, not quite a hermit, just someone who had quietly stepped out of the world's noise. He rose with the sun, he swept the leaves from his porch, he drank tea brewed from spring water and wild herbs. He wrote a little, gardened a little, and when people came to ask for advice, he listened more than he spoke. People said that whatever Wen did, he made it look easy. But it wasn't ease that they admired. It was the absence of struggle. He never seemed to push or force or wrestle with decisions. He moved like a branch in the wind, bending, never breaking, always just enough. That was Wu Wei. It's in the way a skilled musician plays after years of practice, no longer thinking, just flowing. It's in how birds fly without a plan, how waves return to shore without needing to be told. It's not laziness, it's deep alignment. A fisherman casting his net when the tide is just right, not too early, not too late. Not because he calculated it, but because he knows the rhythm. And you start to see this rhythm is everywhere. When you let go of the urge to control, you begin to move with it, not against it. Modern life doesn't like that. It tells us to plan more, do more, optimize every second. But sometimes the most powerful moments come not when we try to shape life, but when we let it shape us. Wu Wei reminds us, you don't always need to force the fruit to ripen. Sometimes the best thing you can do is give it light and warmth and space, and then let go. I remember walking through a bamboo grove once, the kind that sways with the wind in long, slow waves. There was no sound except for the soft rustle, like a conversation without words. The stalks moved so easily, as if they were made to bend, not resist. And I thought, maybe we were made for that too, to flex with the seasons, to lean into the wind, to trust that stillness is not the same as being stuck. The bamboo never tries to stand taller than the others. It just grows, patiently, in harmony with the soil and the rain. Wu Wei is in that, in knowing when to speak and when silence says more, in knowing when to act and when to wait, when to carry and when to be carried. We've been taught to chase, to build momentum, to sprint until we burn out. But maybe the deepest strength isn't in how fast we move, it's in how lightly we step. Sometimes I think about Wen in his hut, not because he had the answers, but because he lived in a way that made the questions quieter. He didn't try to achieve stillness. He simply stopped disturbing it. And in that space, everything essential remained. It's strange how hard we work to feel effortless. But maybe it doesn't have to be that hard. Maybe it starts with noticing, with loosening your grip on the wheel, with trusting that the current knows something you don't. Not because it's smarter, but because it's been flowing longer than you've been alive, and it always knows the way home. There's a parable in Taoist tradition, quiet and small, like the sound of tea being poured. A student once visited a master. He had read many books, learned many things, and now he wanted more. The master invited him in, and without a word, began to pour tea. The student talked and talked while the master gently tilted the pot. The tea rose in the cup, reached the rim, and then slowly began to spill. Still, the master poured. The student, startled, interrupted. "It's full. No more will fit." The master looked at him and smiled. "Exactly," he said. "You came with your cup already full." It's such a small story, but it lingers, because most of us carry full cups, full of opinions, assumptions, worries and plans and expectations about how everything should go. Even when we say we want peace, we come holding noise. Taoism invites something different, not learning more, but unlearning, emptying, letting go of the need to know everything, to control everything, to always be right. Not because we've failed, but because an empty cup can receive. I remember once, years ago, I found myself standing in a garden just after rain. The air was soft, The earth smelled like the color green, and on the leaves of a low plant there was a single drop of water, just one, resting perfectly in the center. It hadn't been forced. The leaf didn't reach for it. It had simply waited, open. There was something quiet in that. The idea that sometimes you don't need to go chasing wisdom. You just need to become a place where it can land. Taoist sages often wrote about not knowing as a kind of knowing, about stepping back, about being at ease with the mystery of things. They weren't obsessed with certainty. They made room for wonder. It's different from how we're taught today. We're told to always be sure, to have a plan, to have an answer. But the Tao flows through the places where the answers haven't hardened yet. Like fog on a morning path. You can't grasp it. You can only walk slowly through it. Sometimes, when you let yourself be empty, life begins to pour back in, but not in the way you expect. Not as achievement or validation or even clarity. Just a soft return to the feeling of being alive, without needing to explain it. The empty cup isn't a sign of failure. It's a kind of readiness, a space within you that trusts what comes. It might fill slowly, drop by drop, a kind word, a breath of stillness, the memory of water moving through stones, but it fills, and you begin to remember what it feels like to carry less. Not because everything is solved, but because for once, you're not trying to hold everything all at once. The cup is empty now, and that's more than enough. Nature never hurries, but everything is accomplished. That's a line I read once. I don't remember where. Maybe in a book with cracked pages, or written on the inside of a clay teacup I found in a quiet shop. It stayed with me, though, the way some truths do, not as instructions but as reminders, of something we already knew before we forgot. There's a mountain range somewhere in western China where the pines grow at odd angles, bent not by wind but by time. They don't race each other toward the sky. Each tree rises at its own rhythm. Some lean, some twist, some barely seem to grow at all, but they are still growing. That's the thing about nature. Its movements are slow and soft and quiet, and yet over enough time the mountain itself changes shape. In Taoism, there's no demand to rush the process, no pressure to make it by a certain age, no shame in taking time to become, because becoming isn't linear. It unfolds the way mist rolls down a hillside, not as a march, but as a drift. We forget that. In the modern world, the clock is king. Success comes with a deadline. Milestones arrive with comparison. You're supposed to have it together before you even know who you are. But nature doesn't rush to bloom in winter, and it doesn't feel late when it blossoms in spring. There's a kind of peace in that, knowing that timing isn't something you're failing at, it's something you're growing into. You don't have to chase the moment. Sometimes you are the moment, just waiting for the light to reach you. I once watched a turtle crossing a forest trail. It was moving so slowly it looked like it wasn't moving at all. But I looked away for a minute, and when I looked back, it had gone farther than I expected. It didn't seem bothered, didn't seem afraid. It just kept going. No wasted motion, no panic, no need to explain itself. And I remember thinking, how much could we change if we moved through life with that kind of quiet faith? The Tao doesn't teach us to rush. It teaches us to trust that when the soil is ready, the seed will sprout, that when we are still enough, the path becomes clear. Not all at once, and not always in the way we imagined, but clearly nonetheless. We spend so much energy trying to get there, but where is there? Is it a title, a destination, a version of yourself that finally feels worthy? Maybe there isn't far away. Maybe it's already here, just waiting for you to notice it. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is slow down, not stop, not give up, just slow, long enough to hear the wind in the trees, long enough to taste the moment before it passes, long enough to live the day instead of escaping it. Nature never hurries, but everything is accomplished, and you are not late, you are right on time. There's another passage in the Tao Te Ching, one that always moves quietly through me like a stream through stone. It says, the softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world. That softest thing is water. We often think of strength as something solid, rigid, firm. But the Tao teaches us to look again. Water wears down mountains, carves canyons, finds its way through every barrier, not by force, but by persistence, by softness, by flowing around what it cannot move. It reminds me of something I saw once, a small river in a deep ravine. The rocks there were ancient, scarred by centuries of water. The surface of the stream was calm, but you could see the shimmer of movement below. Not rushing, just enduring. There was no noise, no resistance, only motion, gentle but unrelenting. In Taoism, water is not just a metaphor, it's a teacher. It doesn't need to declare its path, it simply takes it. And when something stands in the way, water doesn't fight, it flows around, or over, or through given time. It's a very different kind of power, the kind that's quiet, invisible almost, but unstoppable. And it makes you wonder, how often do we harden ourselves thinking it's the only way to survive? How often do we brace against life when maybe the answer is to yield? There's a softness that isn't weakness, a flexibility that isn't compromise. The way bamboo bends in the storm while stronger trees snap. The way silence can say more than 100 perfect words. The way patience can undo what pressure only tightens. This is the strength of softness. The wisdom of not always needing to be right or in control or ahead. Sometimes we forget how much tension we're carrying in our shoulders, in our thoughts, in the way we hold ourselves through the day. And then you take a breath, a deep one, and feel it. Let go. That's water. Inside you, softening what's been clenched too long. Even in the smallest things, a kind glance, an unspoken forgiveness, a moment of silence in the middle of noise, the softest things reach the deepest. The Tao isn't loud, it doesn't demand, it flows. And it invites you to do the same. To let go of needing to be hard all the time. To move through life like water, not because it's easier, but because it's truer. Because when you flow, you return to who you are, to what matters, to the path that always leads home. It's not always easy, walking a quiet path in a noisy world. There are mornings when everything feels urgent. The phone glows before the sun has risen. The to-do list grows before you've had your first breath. The world moves fast, and it rewards speed. But the Tao doesn't. The Tao rewards presence, and presence is quiet. Sometimes it feels like you're out of sync, like your softness is misplaced, like your slow pace is a flaw in a world that glorifies the sprint. But in Taoism, the goal is not to win the race. It's to remember the rhythm, your own rhythm, the one that got buried under deadlines and comparisons and all the voices that said you're not doing enough. You are doing enough, even now, just by listening, just by being here, by allowing yourself to pause, even if only for a little while. I remember walking once through a city just after midnight. The streets were mostly empty, the air cooled by the weight of the day, and in the window of a small bakery, I saw one light left on. Someone was inside, kneading dough. Slowly, rhythmically, alone, not rushed, not watched, just present. There was something sacred about it, something unspoken. The Tao is often like that, not in the temples, but in the tiny moments no one else sees. You don't have to live on a mountaintop to follow the Tao. You don't need to wear robes or quote verses or meditate in stillness for hours. You just need to notice. The way the wind brushes your sleeve, the way light lands on a wall, the way your breath rises, then falls. That's the path. Not a strategy, but a softness, a way of being that lets the world be as it is and lets you be as you are. There will still be chaos, there will still be schedules and expectations and noise, but inside all of that, you can hold a center, a space that stays still, like a pool of water untouched by the wind, reflecting the sky without trying to change it. There's no need to strive so hard, no need to fix everything tonight, no need to earn your rest. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are part of the same current that moves the rivers and the clouds. And even when you forget the way remembers you. Maybe that's all the Tao is, a quiet remembering of what it means to be human in a world that forgot how to be still. So tonight, as the lights go dim and the noise fades and the world keeps turning without your effort, just breathe. Let your thoughts soften. Let your muscles loosen. Let the current carry you. Not forward, not back. Just here. This moment is enough. You are enough. And the Tao is already flowing through you. If any part of tonight's story stayed with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. It helps me know what to share next, and where these quiet reflections are finding their way. If this helped you slow down, feel free to like the video, or subscribe for more stories like this one. But only if it feels gentle. There's nothing you need to do, nothing more you need to be. Just rest now, and let the stillness stay with you, long after the story ends.